Hi world, it's the 21st of December, it's about 10 p.m. UK time. Sometimes, you know, when you least expect it and when you don't get in its way, magic happens. I really wanted to go to Stonehenge this year. I've been every year for the winter solstice for God knows how many years. Started going there in the 1970s and I've been there fairly regularly since then. I haven't missed it for over 10 years. COVID. Stonehenge is closed, couldn't get there. I could have gone over the fence, crept through the fields, got really muddy as I used to do in the 70s and 80s. I'm a bit old for that now. So I thought instead, okay, for this last couple of weeks I've been planning to go to a really fantastic old henge with a massive great old hill fort called Badbury Ring in the north of Dorset in the south of England. It's one of the biggest henges in the world. It's absolutely massive. Look it up on the internet, Badbury Ring. You'll love it. Great place to go. There's an avenue of very ancient beech trees that lasts for about a mile on the road next to it. Steeped in antiquity with an energy of power there. And then London got put into what's called Tier 4 and shortly about to become Tier 4 Plus by the sound of things. So I couldn't go to Badbury either. Just going to put more light on. Hang on. That's better. I can see myself now. So last night I was thinking, well, solstice, I've got to do something. I'm stuck in London, stuck in North London. I can't travel more than a couple of miles without incurring the wrath of the powers that be. I thought, well, I could break the rules. That didn't feel right. So I thought, well, let's have a look. Let's just have a feel about what's going on. So I dug out a really old book around ley lines and power lines in London that, well, ancient. I haven't looked at it for decades. And I came across this little section that talked about a set of woods. Coal pit woods, Queen's Wood, Highgate Woods, little stretch of woods in north central London. And the more I read about it, the more I found out about it, I realised that these were proper forests. These were woods that have never been built on and were never planted. They were there from the dawn of time. They were there from the moment the ice sheets pulled back from southern England. And they'd never been touched. It's still original forest. And it's the only original bit of forest left in the borough of London, in the area of London. So I thought, oh, well, that looks nice. So I dug out the old ley line book and I found a straight line, a really straight line that runs from Primrose Hill, which is a very magical spot in London to those who are esoterically minded. Then it runs up over the crest of Muswell Hill, through the Queen's Wood, where I ended up going, and then up to the stone outside the Weald, at the Wealdstone Church in the far north of London. It's a pretty much straight line. So I thought, okay, I've got to go there. Now, I don't really know London that well, even though I've lived in my part of London for 5 years. So I just thought, well, let's just take a chance and see if I can find it. And by random synchronicity, I found myself parking right outside the entrance to the wood at just the right time. And I walked into the woods and there was something strange going on there. And there was a few other people around. But myself and the people I was with, we sort of commented, there's something a bit spooky here. And it's not spooky as in scary, it's spooky as in magical. Because it was really ancient wood, I got there and there were certain spots where it was just like, ooh, yeah, there's something of the arcane and the esoteric here. The canny, not just the uncanny, but the canny. And then this imagery came to me of the stag running and the half man, half stag, and the thing around Herne the Hunted and the wild hunt. And it was just there for a minute or so. And then the moment of solstice came and we were by a giant king oak tree. And then the rain stopped. The solstice was finished, the pouring rain stopped. I mean, we were drenched to the skin. And the magic seemed to just fade away. So it was quite a magical solstice for me. And if it was as good for you guys as it was for me, then you had a great time. And you can find magic wherever you are. It's all around you. You just got to be able to sense it and pick it up. And we don't need any skill. You just got to open the mind to it and just Well, to quote Goethe, whatever you can dream you can do, you can do. Begin it now. Boldness has genius and magic in it, and power. Which brings me to the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction of 1226 AD. On the morning of the 4th of March, 1226 AD, Jupiter and Saturn were exactly conjunct in the sky, both in latitude and longitude, as close as they were yesterday and today. This is 4th of March 1226 AD. 1226 is a pretty significant year in global history. It's most commonly noted for two main things. Firstly, it was the death of Francis of Assisi, the man who talked to animals, the patron saint of animals, the original Dr. Dolittle perhaps. Secondly, it was the start of the second most vicious assault. It was the Albigensian Crusade, the war by Pope Innocent and King Stephen against the Cathars, and it was the second phase of a war against the Cathars, which started around 1206 AD and finished around 1244 AD. But in 1226 this was the start of the final purge, which led to the events of Montségur and the eventual elimination, or what they thought was the elimination, of the Cathar faith. So Jupiter and Saturn on the 4th of March 1226 AD were conjunct at 1 to 2 degrees of Aquarius. Now, 800 years later, Jupiter and Saturn are conjunct once again, both in latitude and longitude. The distance between them is about 2 arc seconds, just enough to see a line of black between them to make them out as two white blobs to the naked eye. And some of the pictures you people have sent me have been spectacular. Thank you so much. And Jupiter and Saturn are conjunct at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So, bearing in mind that there was also a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, and I haven't got my dates absolutely checked on this one, I haven't gone back this far, but I believe it was around 7 AD, or it might have been 7 BC. Creek. I suspect it was more, I don't know, it was one of the two, 7 AD or 7 BC. It was when Jupiter and Saturn were again conjunct. I'm not sure what sign it was in, but I know it was very, very close. In fact, they were conjunct not only in latitude, but also in longitude, and they were eclipsed. And this may well be the Star of Bethlehem, the royal star rising in the east, which the three magi followed. And here we are again. So, what is it going to mean? Well, in this last year there's been a lot of prayer. There's been a lot of beseeching. Oh God, can't we get out of this? Oh my God, this is awful. And praying to Buddha, praying to Allah, praying to Jesus. Save me from this evil. I suggest that Saturn and Jupiter moving into Aquarius now is the start of a whole new paradigm. And it's the end of organised, orthodox, conventional, structured, misogynistic religion. Religare, to bind, to tie down. Of course, it's not the end of our relationship with divinity, the divine, with spirit. That's only getting stronger to those of us who want it to. Who want it to. You've got to want it to. But the days of having a priest, a mullah, a yogi, a bishop, telling us what to believe and how to behave, while most of them are off doing despicable acts behind the scenes, just doesn't wash anymore. So I suggest that Saturn conjunct Jupiter in Aquarius, and with Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius for the next year, is going to bring one of the final death knells to orthodox conventional religion. And of course it's not going to disappear like that, but it's going to become more and more marginalised. And of course, as it becomes more marginalised, so the remnants of it will become more hardcore, extreme and fundamentalist. And we will see an upsurge in certain areas of fundamentalism. But even today, I saw the Pope granted absolution to the vaccine companies for using cells from aborted fetuses in the experimentation on the vaccine. Not in the vaccines themselves, but in the experimentations of them. Which I just found to be the epitome of hypocrisy. And I suggest this is going to be replaced by a much more global attitude towards spirituality, based on our own relationship with the divine, however we choose to see it as being, where we trust our own judgment, instinct, intuition, gut, soul, where we have faith, not in anyone or anything, but in ourselves, where we trust ourselves, where we rise out of thousands of years of conditioning. This is a chance to begin again. And sure, it's not going to happen overnight, but the more we get into 2021, we're going to see religion crumbling, organised religion crumbling more and more. And I know this is something I've been going on about for years, but it's getting stronger and stronger. So I come back to where I started. Look at the word magic. Where does it come from? Where does it arise? Magic, magician, magi, imagine, imagination. Magic is not conjuring, and it's not casting spells or enchantments or anything like that. Sure, there's a little bit of headology, to use a Pratchettism, and there's a little bit of herbalism, of course. And there's a little bit of witchcraft as well, which is, after all, the proper use of herbology. But magic is more than any of these factors. It is about opening your mind up and seeing what's already there, and about seeing the auras of the trees, of the fields, of the people, of the buildings. It's about sensing the magic that surrounds you. And it's about trusting your own judgment and realising that you are power-filled. Not powerful, but power-filled. And it flows through you. And you are the conduit, not the owner. You can't control it, but you can dance with it. And you can enjoy with it. And you can love with it. God, I'm getting really maudlin and I'm sounding really like I'm losing the plot. At the end of the day, I am an astrologer. I have to come back to where we are right now. Mars will square Pluto in the next 48 hours. There's a lot of panic and phobia out there at the moment. My country is the leper of the world at the moment, even though the variant is now in so many different countries. This will pass, and this will pass shortly. At the end of the day, though, in the meantime, especially at this time, solstice, when the veils are at their thinnest, or one of the times when they're at their thinnest, yeah, you can panic and you can get angry, or you can trust yourself, and you can feel just that little tinge of, oh, that's interesting, oh, that's exciting, I never looked at it like that before. Oh, maybe I can. Maybe I do trust my senses after all. We are sensual beings. Trust your senses, world. Catch you later. Happy Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. Bye now.